Thank you. First of all, I have a little cold, so excuse me, but I'm COVID free, so I've had my test and it's all clear. So it's just a little bit of a head cold, so excuse that, but otherwise all good. So welcome to today's session. I hope you had a marvellous and relaxing Easter. It was a little while ago now, but I hope you enjoyed it. For anyone new online, my name is Anna and I'm a Tibetan Buddhist nun. So the 6 weeks, again for anyone new, the 6 weeks of this course is covering an overview of the marvellous text, magnificent text, Path to Enlightenment in Tibetan Buddhism by the great Tibetan spiritual guide and teacher, Venerable Geshe, Acharya, Thubten, Loden, who is just behind me. So this week we'll explore the way we can, a way that we can access these ancient teachings and really apply them to our modern world. So these teachings, as most of us know, are based on a pure lineage of teachings which stretches back almost 2,600 years, and their purity and their truth and their logic and their value is verified by the ability to apply them to every era and circumstance. And that's a very big variety when we think about the dawn of whole societies, traversing times of peace and war, a host of economic situations, whether from small villages to monasteries and sanctuaries of contemplation, yogic caves, great big commercial cities, an agrarian lifestyle, the industrial and digital revolutions. The value and worth of these teachings have traversed all of these and many other ways of life. In fact, they are applicable to any way of life. So all of these times provide a great wealth of opportunities to illuminate and illustrate the path to enlightenment. Because at the end of the day, when we look at things, for example, stealing, whether we're stealing a sheaf of wheat or whether we're involved in cyber raids, at the end of the day, this is incorrect behaviour. And also, kindness is kindness, whether we're distributing arms to villages or whether we're developing a really sophisticated food bank. So really what the Dharma is about, it's about our approach to the world, it's about our behaviours and our attitudes, and it offers everything that we need right now to bring more happiness and less suffering to both ourselves and to anyone we encounter. So all we need is this path and a deep and abiding recognition that we genuinely have the ability to bring tremendous change into our lives. So really part of this project in studying the path is about building our self-confidence that we too are capable of doing this, of taking this path. And we can listen to the famous words of someone like Barack Obama and remind us in those sort of darker moments and those more difficult moments that we have, and just, bring it to mind, yes, we can. So that is the whole point of these teachings, is to help us to realise that we also have the ability to reach the great states of teachers such as of Shakyamuni Buddha himself and also the great teachers. So we'll begin this session with some prayers. And as we say them, let's focus as closely as we can on the meaning. And all prayers, and I've said this before, are brilliant and inspiring summaries of the teaching. So they bring it really together into the essence, and they can very quickly bring our mind to the essence of what we need to learn. So let's turn to our prayers on page 19. We'll begin with the praise to Shakyamuni Buddha. Teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly pure and complete Buddha, all-knowing, having poise, Sagata, apprehender of the world, navigator of beings to be subdued, incomparable, teacher of gods and humans, to the Buddha, the Bhagavan, the glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, we prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Sanghicho Dangzo Kicho Namla Jang Tu Badu Dani Kyap Suchi Dagi Jinzo Gi Pezonam Ki Drola Panchi Sangi Drupajo. To the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I go for refuge until becoming enlightened. Through the merit of my generosity and so on, may I achieve Buddhahood to benefit all beings. Short mandala offering. Zaji Poki Jojin Meto Tram Prera Ling Jenide Gyan Pari Sangye Jindu Mingde Olwadi Drogon Nam Dakshina Chopajo. This ground anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers, Mount Meru, the four continents, adorned with sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered thus, may all beings enjoy such pure lands. Then we turn to page 23, the prayer of the lineage gurus. Body born from a million magnificent, excellent virtues, speech fulfilling the hopes of infinite beings, a mind that sees all objects of knowledge precisely, I bow my head to the chief among the Shakyas, supreme sons of the incomparable teacher, carrying the load of all the conqueror's deeds, by their emanations appearing in countless realms. I prostrate to Maitreya and Manjushri. The mother of conquerors is difficult to fathom. The precise thought is in commentaries written by Jambudvipa's ornaments, Nagarjuna and Asanga. I prostrate at the feet of those most renowned in the three realms. From these two great chariots come the excellent lineages of the paths of profound view and vast deeds, their essential points gathered thoroughly and without fault. Prostration to the Lamb holding this treasury of instruction, giving explanation through compassion, by seeing precisely and completely the essential points of all paths of Sutra and Tantra, holder of the conqueror's entire holy Dharma, prostrations to the glorious Losang Drakpa, I seeing all the infinite teachings, supreme way of crossing for those entering the journey to liberation, moved by compassion to deeds skilled in method, prostrations to the spiritual masters who make everything clear. Then we turn to the great treasury of excellence, the prayer of the path to enlightenment. The kind master is the basis of all qualities, and proper alliance is the root of the path. By seeing this excellence and through much striving, bestow blessings to be devoted with great respect. This gentle support of freedom, obtained this one time, is most difficult to achieve. Knowing its great value gives rise to a mind seizing its essence constantly, day and night. Bestow blessings to generate this continuum unceasingly. It is like a bubble in water, this constantly moving body and life. Thus remember the swift collapse of death. Beyond death, like body and shadow, white and black karmic results follow after. By gaining firm certainty in this, the mass of faults, Subtle and very subtle are abandoned, and the accomplishments of all virtuous collections completed. Bestow blessings to ever attain conscientiousness. The qualities of samsara unfit to be trusted. The door to all suffering, do not be content with these enjoyments. By knowing its defects, bestow blessings to develop a great aspiration for the bliss of liberation. By that pure thought, great conscientiousness is drawn forth, and mindfulness and awareness of the individual liberation, the root of the teachings. Bestow blessings to make this the essential practice. Just as I myself have fallen into samsara's ocean, all living beings as mother are also like that. By seeing the responsibility for the liberation of beings, bestow blessings to be trained in supreme bodhicitta. However, by merely generating the mind, if not acquainted with the three aspects of ethics, enlightenment will not be attained. By seeing this excellence, bestow blessings to train with strong effort in the vows of conqueror's sons. Pacifying distraction toward perverse objects by way of proper analysis of the perfect meaning, bestow blessings to swiftly and continuously generate the path related to the union of calm abiding and special insight, thus becoming a vessel trained in the common paths, enter the Vajrayana, the supreme evolution of all vehicles. Bestow blessings to engage the easy path itself, that sacred way of crossing for fortunate beings. The base of practice for the two aspects of attainment is when guarding the pure vows of commitment is found to be genuine and certain. Bestow blessings to protect them even at risk of life. Then, by understanding properly the important points, which are the essence of the two stages of the Tantra classes, bestow blessings to practice according to these holy teachings with continuous effort in the supreme four-session yoga. Like that, may the spiritual friend, revealing the gentle path, and the friends of proper practice stand firm. Bestow blessings to quickly pacify the masses of outer and inner hindrances. In all rebirths, may I never be parted from perfect gurus and the enjoyment of the glorious Dharma. By utterly completing all qualities, paths and grounds, may I quickly achieve the state of Vajradhara. So we'll begin with some breathing meditation, and we have a nice straight back and our shoulders relaxed, the head forward, eyes either gently closed or slightly open if we can, tongue resting on the roof of the mouth to prevent the build-up of saliva. So before we commence the day or any meditation, we can spend some time thinking about why we're doing the meditation, establishing a positive motivation for doing so. Generate the wish to use the positive mental qualities we develop in this session to benefit ourselves, reduce suffering and extend that to our families, our friends, our work colleagues, people in other parts of Australia, other parts of the world. We think of people who are suffering, whoever they are. The royal family, the loss of their beloved father and grandfather, people experiencing very poor conditions, areas of war, people suffering throughout the world from the ravages of COVID, which is still very, very bad in some countries like Brazil, parts of Europe, America and so on. the great losses and suffering of tornadoes and earthquakes and other awful tragedies, the loss of insects and animals, so much wildlife injured and dying. Through our day and through our practice, may all my activities support my efforts to reach enlightenment, to reduce the suffering and increase the happiness of every single living being. Bring our attention completely to this moment. Start by focusing on the body and letting our attention rest there. Just being aware. Not clinging to anything that we like. And pushing away anything we don't like. Just being completely at ease with this moment. As it is. Totally focused on our body and how relaxed we can become. Not sleepy, not agitated, just like tuning a guitar. Feel that relaxation in our head and our neck. Just being aware of our head and our neck. Letting go of any tension. Then we focus on our shoulders. Our arms and our hands. Then our back. Just being aware of our back. Releasing the tension. Being aware, not sleepy, not agitated, just aware of our back. Then our chest and our abdomen. Releasing any tension in our ribs. Our breath moving in an even pace. And we focus on our hips and our thighs and apply the same, just being aware of them. And our calves and our ankles. Releasing any tension. And also on our feet and our toes. And with our relaxed body and mind, we think about empathy, love and compassion, and how we might apply them to our whole day. As soon as we wake up, we generate the bodhicitta thought. Through all of my activities today, being compassionate, patient, not harming others, and so on, may I quickly attain Buddhahood to benefit all beings. Any circumstances that we encounter, such as compassion arising from seeing homeless people on the street, meeting very elderly and frail people, a mother struggling with babies and small children, observing the cows and the sheep and the horses in the middle of unsheltered fields, in cold times or extreme heat, where we can, helping injured animals and insects, all opportunities to practice compassion and love and bodhicitta, and appreciate in a very deep way how important it is to achieve the mind of enlightenment. So in previous weeks we've talked about the benefits of taking the path of transformation and what our own highway of bliss might look like. special characteristics. Last time we met in particular, we talked about the special qualities of the graduated path, including the Buddha's teachings are non-contradictory. All the teachings in this book are instructions for practice, great insights into the thoughts of an enlightened being, free of a great fault criticising any other type of Dharma teachings, including all the teachings of Sutra and Tantra. It's easy to practice because it presents mainly the stages of taming the mind, and it combines the teachings of Nagarjuna and Asanga and different emphases on compassion and emptiness. So today our focus is how we can adopt the three wisdoms as our core practice, as the core of our practice, and the 3 and 10 benefits of listening, and the 6 recognitions and Dharma as of life. So listening, thinking and meditating are 3 core skills of the path to enlightenment, and Geshe describes them as the 3 wisdoms. And with a lot to discover, consider and contemplate in the path to enlightenment, the 3 wisdoms are both simple to remember and can become our very dear friend. Geshe describes them as our closest ally, our best buddy, not quite in those terms, because they'll never let us down. However much we love our family and friends, there will very likely be times that there are perhaps some hiccups, a lack of reliability, even if it is occasional and quite subtle. So Geshe says that on the other hand, these 3 wisdoms continuously deliver more and more happiness and gradually relieve our sadness and suffering. He says that they act like our special guide. He describes them as a special guide and a great companion until we reach enlightenment. So he says that the wisdom of listening actually directly opposes our delusions. So we've got all these delusions to get rid of, and here we've got a method that might seem reasonably simple, the wisdom of listening. So by listening, we're in fact applying an opponent to our delusions and our negative minds as they arise. And we're learning to control and overcome all of our negative thoughts. So to ensure our meditation is going well, we need the wisdom of listening to know how to progress our practice exactly and precisely. So according to the path to enlightenment, it's a big issue, this art of listening. So Geshe actually spends quite a lot of time talking about this wisdom of listening. So if he does do that, then it's perhaps something that we need to pay attention to, even if we think we're a reasonably good listener. Perhaps there are different levels of listening. There's listening, and there's listening, and there's really listening. So when we listen closely to the teachings, which includes reading, we gain the wisdom of listening and better knowledge and understanding. And so this encourages us and inspires us to be much more joyful and serious in our efforts. So then that wisdom will continue to grow and to build. And step by step we begin to understand our mind as it functions. And Geshe says eventually we'll know our mind and we'll also begin through the wisdom of listening to know the mind of others. And we'll begin to know the source of all problems and suffering as a result of this. So then we have a means when we're in this state to be able to help others if we know their minds and if we know our mind really well. So he says it's a really big help also, this topic of listening, when we come to think about faith. So he says that there are 2 types of faith. And the first of all, I think we would call it blind faith in the West. And this is where we develop deep devotion to the Buddha, the Dharma and the Sangha, or to any other topic. We have, we love compassion or we love bodhicitta, but we don't really know what they are. So they sound amazing and we love the sound of them, but our understanding needs to go really, really deep, really deep. So he's saying that this kind of blind faith, this type of faith, can easily be weakened and fall over, especially when our negative mind pops up, or negative minds pop up and obstructions pop up, such as illness. If we're getting sick, or we, lose our jobs, or we lose our loved ones, or we have some other, crisis happening in our lives, quite often that kind of faith is not strong enough to withstand this kind of potentially emotional blitz. We might have a very emotional response, and our faith won't be strong enough at that point. So, for example, we might think, we're in a real pickle, lots of things are going wrong, and then we might think something, there might be just a little background thought going, well, I've got this Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, but why aren't they helping me right now? I'm in this real mess, and why aren't they helping me? Where are they when I need them? There are any number of problems with that kind of thinking. Such as, perhaps we're thinking that the Buddha, the Dharma and the Sangha means some kind of instant karma, protection, and instant positive changes in our lives by having those beliefs. But actually, karma doesn't work that way. Karma, as you will discover later in the year in much more detail, in this life we generally experience the karma that has been created in the previous life. And the karma we create now will impact the next life. So Geshe advises again and again to think about creating the karma for the next life. So this life's karma is mostly settled, he used to say. So the other type of faith is much stronger and more reliable, and it's really based on a very strong foundation. The three wisdoms of listening, thinking and meditating. And this type of devotion and faith that seeks to really understand the qualities and meaning of the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha and the goal of enlightenment is really strong, and it's virtually indestructible, and the same with the other topics. So then when we are suffering from a calamity or a series of calamities that happen in our lives, as does from time to time, always seems to happen together, then we have a suite of Dharma tools to help us through those situations, and we've got a really good understanding of what we can do at that point. So, what are the benefits of listening? So without listening to the teachings, Geshe says it is like an intelligent person with the potential of excellent sight, finding themselves stuck in a dark room, and that's happened through a power strike or something like that. So this person, he says in this example, is however smart they are, they can't see anything until the electricity comes on. So it's that kind of listening to the Dharma is a light that helps us to both see the Dharma really clearly, but to also really enjoy it a lot more. So Geshe lists three great benefits from ancient Buddhist scriptures about listening to the Dharma on page 72. And these are called the three Pitakas. A Pitaka literally means basket of teachings in Sanskrit. And the three Pitakas, or Tripitaka, also means the three teachings in Pali. So they are taught extensively in Theravadan Buddhism. So the three Pitakas that Geshe refers to are, first of all, Vinaya Pitaka, and in its strictest interpretation relates to the rules for the ordained community, but it can also be extrapolated and more broadly refers to the development of pure morality by all practitioners. Abandoning the thought of harming others and abandoning any thoughts that are the basis of harming others, as well as maintaining discipline. So with a mind of pure morality or ethics, we are free of agitation and remain undistracted. And we can read more about how to practice the perfection of ethics on page 677 of the Path to Enlightenment. That the Buddha himself said that the practicing pure ethical behaviour, maintaining and protecting any vows we have taken, can be likened to a beautiful ornament to a jewel. This is similar to the joy and contribution to our self-confidence when we've made a promise and kept it, except much, much deeper. So we've made a promise, we've shown that we're interested and engaged, and then we build this joy and we build this confidence. The second great benefit is the development of concentration by understanding the Sutra Pitaka. So the Sutra teachings show how to concentrate. Specifically, we learn how to concentrate in calm abiding and the perfection of concentration, and also generally in our practice of meditation, as our awareness will naturally improve and our concentration will naturally improve as we do more meditation. So by increasing our concentration, we can tame and subdue an unruly mind. So the third great benefit of the Pitakas is known as Abhidhamma Pitaka. And one description I found of this Pitaka describes it as the basket of special doctrine. So if we understand the Abhidhamma Pitaka, we will achieve the wisdom perceiving emptiness, and perceiving the ultimate nature of phenomena. So the wisdom is the direct opponent to the ignorance of self-grasping, which keeps us in the miseries of cyclic existence. We've spoken in early weeks how we will need to realise emptiness to really, and I'm sure you've learned at other times, to really deal with the delusions. So by perceiving the ultimate nature of phenomena, we can cut the roots of delusions, of the delusion energy, says Geshe. He describes it as delusion energy, and that will enable us to achieve liberation. So that is the three benefits of listening, as described in the Pitakas. So listening to the Dharma and receiving teachings develop wisdom like a beautiful wisdom lamp removing darkness. So then in Ashvaghosha's life stories, he lists 10 more benefits of listening. And we will meditate on them later, so I'll just do a quick précis here. So in summary, listening to the Dharma is described as, in Ashvaghosha's life stories, as the best of all possessions as it can't be stolen. So that's pretty obvious. It's a great possession to have and no one can take it. It's a weapon to destroy our enemy of confusion. Our best friend as it has the best advice, the best relative or friend as it won't reject us when we are poor, the best medicine because there are no side effects and a perfect cure of the disease of delusion, the supreme opponent because it reduces all great faults, the best treasure as it shows a wealth of resources and a great reputation, the best gift we can give when meeting with high-minded people, and the best way to please any gathering of scholars. So then Geshe explains that when we have developed the wisdom of listening, that's a really strong ability to listen or read. It is easy to develop the wisdom of thinking, so that will come quite easily once we've got the wisdom of the realisation of the wisdom of listening. And with that, it's easy to then develop the wisdom of meditating. So that will follow as well, that we will want to meditate and that our meditation practice at this point will then develop very quickly. Therefore, the wisdom of listening is a very precious jewel. So on page 78, the path then explores how we go about our listening. There are three faults that stop us from becoming a suitable vessel or container to incorporate the teachings in our mental continuum. All three conjure up somewhat amusing and memorable images. The three faults are being like an upside-down vessel or pot. So we can't get anything into a pot that is upside down. Think about an example. Try pouring milk and honey into a bowl. It's upside down. Nothing happens except a big mess. So this person is completely closed-minded. We need to be careful to listen closely when hearing teachings and watch that our mind doesn't go wandering. It is important to focus our attention or we will miss everything, never mind the life-changing gems that occur. So deep listening to the Dharma becomes a form of meditation. So the next one is being like a hold vessel. That's like a colander. Everything goes straight through. So our milk and honey, again, is quickly lost and another big mess to clean up. This shows the fault of not remembering what is taught. So our goal is to try and to remember the teachings and put them into practice, whatever understanding we have gained from them. For example, after the meditation class, we can use the meditations that we have learned, applying them to the best of our understanding and checking the text where there's any gaps. The third one's even worse. This is being like a dirty vessel. So we plan to make scones. We're pouring in the flour and the milk and the butter and a bit of honey into the container that held last night's gravy. That's not going to be very nice. So it will be polluted and contaminated and taste very, very unpleasant. So in the same way, we need to keep our mind as pure as possible and check our motivation, free of negative thoughts and a self-cherishing attitude. So we've really got to be on alert for the 8 worldly dharmas. Attachment to gain and fear, fear of loss. Attachment to pleasure and fear of pain. Seeking fame and fearing disgrace. Seeking praise and fearing blame. For this reason, it is very important to begin our practice with a good motivation and avoid the 3 unhelpful containers or vessels. So the Buddha said himself in a sutra, listen well, listen fully, and retain in the mind. So what he means here is listen well means abandon our dirty vessel, that is the negative mind. Listen fully means I don't engage in pointless exercise, listening like an upside down vessel. Retain in the mind means ensure there are no holes in our pot. So the next formal title in our next wake-up call from page 79 of the Past Enlightenment is Cultivating the Six Recognitions. A more contemporary title might be something like Getting Real or perhaps How to Get Our Act Together, but they help us to become more receptive to the Dharma. They help us to see the Dharma teachings as being different from some kind of academic dissertation. We're not here to study like we're in a university. So these, can sound a little, maybe even a little confronting, but they are really tools. They're tools. These 6 recognitions are tools to help us to become more and more engaged with the teaching. They're like the carrot part, the stick part, and there's partly carrot as well. So we talked earlier about the carrot and stick that tends to pervade the whole of the Past Enlightenment. So this one, the first one is, I'll just summarise them and then we'll talk about each of them. So recognising ourselves as a sick person, recognising the Dharma as medicine, recognising the Guru as a skillful doctor, recognising that practice is the way to be cured, recognising the Buddha as reliable, recognising that the Dharma should flourish and endure. So recognising ourselves as a sick person means clearly seeing the disease, poison and negative impact of our delusions. It's not saying, I'm so bad, I'm so bad, I'm so bad. It's about just identifying the delusions and then making a determination to do our very best to do something about them. So whether we see it clearly or not, we actually have a lot of suffering due to our negative minds. Quite hard to see. It can be gross and quite obvious if we do have, a lot of anger and a lot of frustration and a lot of grasping, a lot of jealousy. But it can be quite subtle too, and it becomes subtle agitation. So anxiety or frustration or irritation, anger, attachment, ignorance, miserliness, jealousy, stress, fear of losing what we don't have, fear of not getting what we want, endless, concern about endless change and not being able to cope with change. So there's so many things that are sort of operating in our minds that, we won't see necessarily. So sometimes, as I say, suffering is as clear as day, such as when we're angry, and often it is quite hidden. For example, when we first meditate, often people, when we first learn to meditate, often people are quite shocked by the amount of chatter and busyness of the mind that they see for the first time. And the more we learn about suffering and we learn about the quality and think about the quality of our mind, the more our suffering becomes quite obvious, until we can even clearly perceive what is known as pervasive suffering. So it is said that cyclic existence is pervaded by suffering, and although the suffering of pain and changing suffering are reasonably obvious, pervasive suffering is much more difficult to discern. And it is when we discern this pervasive suffering, this ongoing suffering that we all have, some of it quite subtle, then we are able to properly gain renunciation and renunciate and decide that we don't want to be part of the suffering anymore. And that's a really important step when we can begin to see this pervasive suffering. And all of our suffering has causes that essentially occurred at some point in time, and all of the causes have remedies, so that's really good news. So therefore it becomes really important to recognise that we are like a patient, and our negative minds are the real problem, the real disease. That's why we say that we have recognised ourselves as a sick person. So Geshe gives an example of attachment. When grasping and attachment arise, we develop expectations that might not be able to be realised. For example, a person might think he is or she is well overdue a pay rise at work. Instead, for reasons that the person is not privy to, the position is dissolved and the employer is moved to another department. It may well be very unfair, and that of course would need to be dealt with, but attachment to a pay rise quickly becomes dismay and even anger at the loss of the expected increase in income. The employee may find it hard to focus on any of the positives, such as the fact that they've still got a role and there is still a job. So if their mind is pervaded by their grief over the loss of opportunity, that might not create such a balanced approach. And this grief and disappointment and anger can make us very uncomfortable and unhappy. And it can also bring, physical discomfort, such as exhaustion. We can get very exhausted. So this is what we mean by saying that having really negative minds is a sick person, and at some level negative minds are making us sick. So the Buddha said that delusions are in fact the worst disease, the worst of all diseases that we can possibly have. There's so many, terrible physical diseases, but he said because they cause so much suffering and pain for ourselves and the people that we encounter. So quite a big thing to recognise. And then the second is the recognising that the Dharma is the medicine. And here we think that the Buddhist teachings, the Dharma, provide a medicine. And there's so many different aspects to this medicine to remove the illness of suffering and delusion. So we've got a huge smorgasbord of tools and methods that we can use to address our negative minds. And if we follow the path leading to the cessation of all our sufferings, the negative minds, the disease of delusions will be cured. So there is a way out of this, and we will achieve a permanent end to all of our suffering, and then be in a really fantastic position to have a fully awakened mind, but also in a much better position to help all of those that we encounter and who would like to learn more about how to deal with their own unwellness. So recognising the teacher as a skillful doctor, I'm not talking by teacher here is meant the high guru, a person like Geshe Loden. I'm not talking about who created these teachings, not so much a person like me who was merely a channel or a mouthpiece for the great words of the teacher. So we're talking about Geshe Loden and any of the great masters when we're talking about recognising the teacher, the great teachers, as a skillful doctor. Geshe Loden, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and other great teachers are like the doctor. They're not a professor at a university imparting knowledge. It is more like a patient. We're more like a patient consulting with a supremely skilled specialist who prescribes what we need to do and which medicines that we personally, when we're all completely different, there is no one is going to have exactly the same recipe for dealing with their own mind. But this is why the wisdom of listening is so important, because then we're going to become familiar with our own mind, and then we're going to begin to learn how to apply the aspects and the tools of the path to enlightenment that we most need to deal with negativity that's giving us the most grief. Is a good place to start, and when that's subdued, then another one will come to the fore, and we can work on that. So we can continuously be working on aspects of through the knowledge of our mind. So the fourth of these is the recognising that practice is our way to be cured. So in this marvellous verse from the King of Concentration Sutra, the Buddha said, "Though I teach you the great holy Dharma well, after you hear it, if you do not practice properly, it is like the sick person carrying a sack of unopened medicine, saying my disease has not been cured." So Geshe explains that if we visit the highly skilled specialist, he prescribes medicine and we decide not to take it, there's no chance of being cured. It's not possible. This is our fault, not the specialist, not the medicine. So in the same way, we hear the Dharma as explained by the Buddha doctor, then ignore it, we can't be cured. This is our fault. It's not the teacher and it's not the teachings. It's our decision whether we want to practice it or not. So great practitioners have carefully followed the teachings presented by the Buddha, then carefully explained by the great teachers such as Atisha and Tsongkhapa, so many teachers and High Lamas, and most recently for us, the benefit of listening to Geshe Loden, who was so kindly, in a completely language that it was not his first language, then presented these teachings in English. Shanti Deva explains it in Engaging in the Bodhisattva Deeds. If we need to follow our doctor's advice when afflicted by an ordinary disease, what need to mention when afflicted by the hundreds of delusions, attachment, and so forth? So Geshe advises that we gradually approach the path to enlightenment step by step, as the spiritual doctor has advised. Without the realisation of the first stage of the path, we cannot achieve the realisations of the second and third stages. The Buddha said, if you practice Dharma, understand your mind and observe karma, there is benefit to both yourself and others. We are helped first with our afflictions, and then by our practicing and understanding we can go and help others. There is no way to remove others' negative karma apart from showing them the right path. It's not possible. And we don't have to necessarily talk about Dharma. There's many ways to talk about Dharma. We don't necessarily need to talk about it. If we've come across a person who has got major problems and it's very clear that some of the Dharma would be really useful, we can take out all of the Dharma language. We're all here by choice because we want to hear Dharma, but it's still really good advice and very simple to explain in other terms. For example, like being patient and learning to be patient and not getting caught up in the emotion of one's anger. That is quite easy to explain in non-Dharma terms. Another great sutra from the Buddha says, the Buddhas cannot wash away sins with water. They cannot remove sentient beings' suffering by hand. Their realisation cannot be transferred to others. Only by showing the truth of suchness can they be released. We've talked about that a few times. So the fifth of the six recognitions is recognising the Buddha as reliable. So the recognition of the Buddha with great reverence and respect is done to acknowledge his qualities and profound compassion. Because Shakyamuni Buddha did the necessary work over many lifetimes and attained enlightenment, he is a being worthy of respect and reverence. And he's totally reliable in the methods he puts forward for our use. That's up to us to check as we're doing our studies. We check up. If you are learning to sing opera, you will have endless respect for Pavarotti, for example. You'll have enormous respect because you'll understand that Pavarotti has done a huge amount of work and he has got an enormous talent and is really able to deliver opera in a great way. The same if you've been studying physics. You'll revere the brilliance of Einstein and Newton. So Shakyamuni Buddha himself not only achieved the ultimate of his endeavours, he then set out to pass it on to others, which is still valued by millions of people 2,600 years later. So he is worthy of that respect and that reverence. And for those of us who would like to, we call him holy, a holy being as a result. So the sixth of the recognitions is that Dharma should flourish and endure. So if we see the limitless benefit of the Dharma for both ourselves and for others, we can reflect then on its value. We develop the wish that it flourish and that it lasts forever, for another 2,600 years and beyond. And this attitude causes us to value the Dharma greatly, to see that we have somehow managed to connect with something that's very, very precious. So in summary, by practicing the Dharma, we begin to learn through our meditation and by applying the three wisdoms which thoughts and actions are skillful and which are helpful and unhelpful. We then thoroughly investigate our own minds, seeing clearly how many positive and negative thoughts that we have. If we become a dedicated student, we can begin to work more and more closely with all of these methods that investigate and transform our underlying attitudes and revise our settings, so to speak. Completely review our settings and how we view the world, and everything is at our fingertips, literally, to help us on this remarkable journey. And then that way Dharma becomes our medicine and it becomes our way of life, way of seeing the world. It doesn't exclude other things in our life, it becomes just a new framework and a new setting for how we view the world and we assess the world. And that's how it's so transformational. Okay, so we'll do some more meditation at this point. We're going to meditate on the 10 benefits of listening. So if we just resume our excellent meditation posture and nice straight back, shoulders relaxed, head forward. And then we'll just return to our breath for a few minutes. So I'll just I'll read each of the 10 benefits, and in between we'll focus and meditate on each of them. So the first of these is listening to the Dharma and receiving teachings develops wisdom. This wisdom eliminates ignorance like a lamp eliminates darkness. Listening to the Dharma is the best of all possessions, because unlike ordinary possessions, thieves cannot steal it. Listening to the Dharma is a weapon to destroy the enemy of confusion. Listening to the Dharma is your best friend because it gives you the best advice. Listening to the Dharma is the best relative or friend because it will never forsake you when you have difficulties or become poor. Listening to the Dharma is the best medicine because it has no side effects and cures the disease of delusion. Listening to the Dharma is a supreme opponent because it reduces all great faults. You will stop creating non-virtues of thought and action because you will recognise thoughts and actions that are skillful and those that are unskillful. Listening to the Dharma is the best treasure, as it bestows a wealth of resources and a great reputation. Listening to the Dharma is the best gift we can have when meeting with high-minded people. Listening to the Dharma is the best way to please any gathering of scholars. When we develop the three wisdoms, they become our guide and can remove all problems and suffering. The wisdom of listening or receiving teachings or reading eliminates ignorance, doubt, and misunderstanding. The other two wisdoms are developed in dependence on the wisdom of listening. Then, in recognition of the effort of this meditation and this class, we can dedicate the positive energy we have created towards more happiness in our life, more good conditions, better health, and also happiness and good conditions for the people we love and for all living beings. So we conclude with the final prayer of the graduated path on page 31 and then the dedication. By the two collections, vast of space, amassed with effort for a long time, may I become chief of conquerors, a guide for all beings whose mind's eye is blinded by ignorance. Also in all lives will not yet come to that, may Manjushri favour me with his compassion. Finding the supreme path, complete with all stages of the teachings, may I please the conquerors by practicing well. By my precise understanding of the essential points of the path, with skillful means drawn along by strong compassion, and by dispelling the mental darkness of beings, may I uphold the conqueror's teaching for a long time. Where the supreme precious teaching has not spread, also where it has spread but become degenerate, with a mind deeply moved by great compassion, may I make clear this treasure of benefit and bliss. The stages of the path, excellently established by the marvellous deeds of the conquerors and their sons, give glory to the minds of those aspiring for liberation. May the conquerors' deeds be long preserved. May all humans and non-humans who remove the obstructions and establish conditions favourable to cultivating the excellent path never be parted for all of their lifetimes from the purest of paths which the Buddhists have praised. When someone makes effort to practice properly the 10 points of conduct of the Supreme Vehicle, may he always be assisted by the mighty protectors, and may oceans of good fortune spread out, reaching all. Then on page 34, the general dedication. Complete the collections of wisdom and merit, and attain the two holy bodies arisen from wisdom and merit. Jangyuzem Jorin Moje Maji Panam Jigaji Jipanyamba Mepai Gone Gondu the precious superior mind of enlightenment be generated in those who have not yet generated it, and not decrease in those who have developed it, but increase continuously. Thank you, everyone. Next week is the final session in the 6-week overview series, and we will look at how to gather traction and momentum in our spiritual journey. And then from 2 May, Pam Martin will dive deeper into the book. So have a great week. Thank you.